Guys, it's Phillip Kennedy Johnson. He's back. Let's get into it. Guys, welcome back to the show. Phillip Kennedy Johnson. Phillip, how are you this evening?
I'm great, man. Good to see you, Rich.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Good to see you too. We met in passing last year in New York at Comic-Con at after hours thing. Uh I feel like I just missed having like a quick conversation with you and you had to jet.
I'm embarrassed to admit I don't remember that. I remember,
That's okay.
I remember meeting you, of course, but I don't
Yeah.
remember like the circumstances that evening. But that makes sense for New
Mhm.
York Comic Con, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, also you're talking to guys who have this head for 4 days, also, like a bearded and glassed person. Um, so good
Don't
to
talk
talk to
that
you,
way,
man.
Rich. You are a snowflake, and there's no one like you. I don't. I guess I shouldn't. I guess that's an unflattering word these days. I don't mean it
Thank you.
like that.
No, I
I mean
understand.
like a
One of a
unique and
kind.
beautiful. Yeah, unique and beautiful creature, not a little bitch who complains about everything. That's a different kind of snowflake.
I'm six-sided and very unique
Yeah, yeah.
and very cold to the touch. No, honestly, like I'm not a complainer, which is I think has been an asset for pretty much my entire adult life,
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You got to have that.
But thank you for coming on. We cracked a couple of beers before coming on.
We
So cheers,
did.
sir.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Skull.
sir.
Yeah.
So talk to me, man. You've had a busy year. You haven't been on for a while, which is cool. You're busy. Everybody's busy. I really want to ask you right off the bat, and I'm sorry if you've heard this ad nauseum. How does it feel to have that action run, the War World run, added to basically one of the best Superman stories of all time?
Oh, dude, thanks, man. That's super kind of you to say. It's a huge honor. And it is kind of a bucket list thing. And that I mean, I just did not ever expect to get to write Superman. I mean, I have a very clear vision of who Superman is. And when I got the call, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, like who I wanted to be, at least in the book.
Mhm.
I just didn't think I'd ever get that shot. So it was a crazy honor to get to do it. And it's just something that, like no matter what happens next, whatever, even if everything goes horribly off the rails now, I'm always going to look back on that run with pride. I'm super proud of it, proud of all the work that all the artists did and the editors and everyone. It's just, yeah, just a honor of a lifetime.
That's
It's like a
awesome.
tribute to my favorite character, man. I mean, it's one of my very favorite characters, probably my first hero ever of any kind, fictional or real, and someone that just made my life better in very real, tangible ways.
I agree with that. I have those same sentiments also, which I often get into with just like conversations. And I'm sure you've probably had these conversations with people too. Like I've had these conversations with my wife where, it's I didn't have an awful childhood, like not by any stretch of the means, but like I learned a lot of stuff from comics, and I always say like I learned a lot of stuff from Superman, be good, be the best you could be, always
Yeah,
help
man.
out, like all of those things have always come across to me. And I think that has always done it for the character for me, and that run in particular, like your run nails every single one of those things. And it was just, you don't really see that kind of almost long form storytelling with the character, and I thought that was such a brilliant move. Now, did DC say, hey, do you have anything on deck? Or was it partly like, hey, I got this on deck. Let me see if I could do it.
um, they didn't just open the door and say, do any kind of Superman thing. They actually came to me kind of with a pitch. Well, so okay, first, do you know about the whole 5G thing?
Like the wireless thing or
No,
the
there was an event that was going to happen in the days of
yes,
Didio. You know about that?
yes. Okay. Yeah.
And then Didio left, and that all kind of fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
But when that was so for listeners who don't know, there was going to be this event. So my editors, one of my editors I was working with at the time, reached out to me and said, so we're about to do this crazy thing called that we're calling right now 5G, where we're giving the DC universe a permanent timeline, like a fixed in time timeline. Like Batman is 21 years of age in this year. And if if you're telling a story with Bruce Wayne, modern day, he's going to be this old, and everything. Like it's this is the year in which Wonder Woman was introduced to the world. This is the year in which the Justice Society was around. This is the year the Justice League showed up. Blah blah. He basically, we're going to fix the timeline in space, in like a fixed calendar, and that was going to completely just change everything. And I was like, okay, how long is this going to go for? And he said, this is going to be the way forward, like forever. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, come on, dude, just tell me.
Yeah.
like how, when are we going to go back to normal? And he's like, the guidance we've received is that this is permanent. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. We can pretend that this is permanent. Like it's, give me a fucking break. But that, not to say that I believe that second answer when it was like the guidance we've been told it's forever. I'm sure that part is true.
Okay.
Even though I also fully believe that they did not believe it any more than I did, but that was the guidance. So they kind of brought me in. This is after The Last God. I'd done The Last God, my epic fantasy horror book at DC, and they saw how much time I spend on world building. How like I do these crazy deep dives and just answer every question with another question, just make everything gigantic, and this is kind of how I do things. And they were like, dude, let's get this crazy ass dude to do our cosmic side of DC, like we'll have him be like our showrunner for all the cosmic stuff. So that's what I was doing for 5G. There were a couple other books I was doing, like specific books I was writing, but I was also kind of figuring out the cosmic direction. And at some point, everything kind of changed midstream. Like, we're not going to do the whole big picture thing, but we still have a lot of ideas from 5G that we really like and that we want to do. But we're going to get to those stories more organically. So we're not just flooding the market with completely new books. Because if 40, 50 new books, 52 new titles come out and they're all number one, everything's all different now. There's going to be a lot of great books that just don't get a second look. Because everyone's going to be looking at the Trinity, the Justice League, the big stuff. No one's going to be looking at the little ones. So we're going to be getting everything more organically. And they still wanted to use a lot of the stuff that I was doing for the cosmic books. And Superman was intrinsically tied to some of that stuff that I was coming up with. And so was Warworld. Like Warworld was going to be a big part of it. Where I made up this big thing where they wanted to do a book called War Worlds, plural. And that was kind of the fundamental piece of my thing. We're going to introduce this whole new origin of Warworld that was going to tie into the first world gods, the old gods of the old gods to the new gods. The Old Testament. If the Kirbyverse stuff is New Testament, then we're going to do the Old Testament and tie it all in with new gods with Warworld. Anyway, so eventually that kind of morphed into a Superman story, and they're like, "Would you want to do the Superman book?" So then that's what they put me on Superman in Action, with the understanding that I was going to be doing Superman just as a transitionary chapter, and just to hand it off to Tom to do the John Kent stuff, because part of 5G was going to be John Kent as Superman.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyways, that's all kind of how that came to be. They were the Warworld chapter of the Superman thing was kind of a way to get Superman off Earth while John was doing his thing.
Right.
So that was all kind of baked into my Superman origin story at DC, if you will. But then after that, everything that actually came out, all the details of the Warworld saga was all me. They came to me like, we're gonna get Superman off Earth for a bit, and we want you to write that story. And that's what I ended up doing. That's what became the Warworld saga. And yeah, I pitched them this gigantic long form thing, and to their credit, they said yes. And I did kind of keep stretching it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And part of it was because the hand I was dealt. Like Grant Morrison was doing his Superman of the Authority book, and that was already kind of part of it too.
Right.
And I didn't want to introduce that team and then not use them. So it made sense to bring them all up to Warworld with him. And with so many characters, there were all these subplots that had to get dealt with. So we couldn't just do a 6-issue thing up there. For everyone to be there and make sense and get a chance to shine, it had to be a longer story. And especially with all the mythology we were building and all that. So yeah, that's kind of how it all came around.
I felt it was very just smart storytelling, because like with all the elements that were incorporated, you also threw in like a Manchester Black, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's a character that's always like that I've always dug, and like my comic reading buddies have always dug. So it's like, oh shit, Manchester Black's on the thing. Um, what I find fascinating about your run, apart from how great it is I know so many people who have texted me about it, like folks who haven't read comics in a while and kind of did like a reverse engineering thing, who these guys who are, let's say, still action figure fans. I think my brother was a good example where like he sent me a picture of the preview of like War World Superman, and like the figure and how gnarly it looks. And
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta read the book. Like, it's awesome. Like what was your reaction when you saw that figure and you were like, yo, that's my guy.
Dude, I was so excited, man. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was hoping that that DC would go big on it and like really try to make it a thing. And but that's all kind of out of my hands. I just want to make a good book, Like I'm not
Yeah.
really a marketing guy. I just want to tell a good story. And yeah, so when I heard before I actually saw the thing that
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be one that it was one of the McFarlane pieces that were, and man, I was like, I cannot wait to see this thing. And when they showed it, and I got it from my son. My son was so stoked, and so
That's
I got a
cool.
few. Yeah, I got a few copies of. I got a few figures to give away, and one of them was,
Yeah.
of course, for my son, and so he's got it set up in his room, which is pretty dope.
How old is your son?
9.
So he's reading all your stuff now at this point, for the most part.
Yeah, not all of it, no,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but actually most of it now. Yeah, he's not going to be reading my alien stuff for a while.
Right,
And
yeah.
but he can read my Superman books, and I do read
Yeah.
him. I've been reading my Hulk stuff as well.
Cool.
He's not reading my Alien. He's not reading my Bond.
He's not reading the 007 books.
No, no, no. There's sex in him a little bit, but no, he's reading other stuff, and he's getting to the point where he really likes creepy stuff. For a while, I was reading him
Mhm.
Hellboy,
Okay.
um, because he was really getting a taste for the creepy kind of books, and I was like, we got to check out Hellboy. So I showed him some of that. He really loves. I got him into Norse mythology. He's all proud to have
Awesome.
he likes he's got Viking blood and everything. So I
Yeah.
taught him all about Norse mythology. And that led him to Greek mythology and Egyptian stuff, and he's just really into it.
Yeah.
And then I started telling him about folklore, and we started reading Hellboy, because Hellboy is this really awesome thing where Hellboy just kind of walks the earth, and these things he kind of attracts these
Yeah.
stories of like ghost stories or historical fiction or folklore, to these creepy stories to which the rest of us are blind.
Mhm.
He's able to see these things like really happening all around him, and I just think those stories are great. And that's actually honestly probably the biggest influence on my Hulk run.
Very
Um,
cool. Okay.
so I've been reading him. I read him a lot of Hellboy. He and his mom took a big trip for a while, so I didn't see him for a while. But
Mhm.
when he got back, I started reading him my Hulk stuff. So we got to get back to the Hellboy at some point and read the rest.
That's
But
awesome. That
I've got all those big library editions, so we're just kind of going through them all.
Oh, those are the best. So are you of like Norwegian, Swedish ancestry?
I've got some I've got a lot of Danish ancestry,
Okay.
and there is some other Scandinavian in there as well.
Hmm.
Um, German, English, Scottish, just all the white dude hits.
Yeah, yeah. All the big heads.
Uh,
Have you have
yeah, but
you have you picked up the Neil Gaiman Norse mythology book?
oh yes, I read that to him actually. I read him that exact copy. We what was it? I think we might have gotten a book of, yeah, I think his first exposure might have been, there's like a Scholastic Book Fair thing that
Okay.
had some other Norse mythology book, and it was fine. But when I was reading it,
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking like, man, the game is just better.
It
Like
really is.
it's great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really love the telling in that volume, and I've read that already. I read it like by in hand, but I also listened to Neil Gaiman's reading of it, the audiobook. That was really good.
Hmm.
Um, so I found my copy, or maybe did I find my copy, or did I buy him another one? I might have. That one might still be lost someplace. Or I'm always giving books away too. I think I ended up getting him another copy. Anyway, so we read that together, and he loved it, and that led to other kinds of stuff. But yeah, he's way into it. He knows. Oh, we also played the God of War game, the new one, the God
Oh,
of
right
War.
on. Yeah.
And I have that Mjolnir and everything. I see your Mjolnir back there.
Yeah.
I've got the special edition Mjolnir from that Ragnarok game.
Oh, that's cool. I skipped out on that. I was gonna pull the trigger on it, and it was like, oh, my wife will kill me.
Oh man, that's yeah. I
Mhm.
every now and then I'll buy a special edition game.
Mhm.
But very rare. I've got a couple of Batman figures like that. Do I have those in here? I don't think I do. Just got the one dude. But I've got a couple of little Batman statues that come with the Arkham games, and I've got that Mjolnir thing, and that's it.
That's awesome. So, going with the Norse stuff, um, are you into or have you heard of this band called Amon Amarth?
Uh, I don't think so. It kind of rings a bell.
Philip, you are gonna have a blast, and I think you're a musician,
I am.
very heavy,
I like
very
heavy shit.
melodic, very heavy,
Okay.
very melodic. Their
Do
entire
you,
career is Norse mythology,
dude?
and
Okay. Say
it's
the name again.
awesome. Amon Amarth, one of my favorite
Okay.
bands, one of my favorite shows. They do this to go on a little tangent. Over the last few years, their production has gotten bigger. Like imagine like a death metal version of Iron Maiden, you know,
Okay.
like
That's all I need
real
to hear.
awesome. Yeah, like awesome. But they're for the last few years, like their shows have gotten so big where they have like it's a long ship on stage and their
Oh my
drummers,
god!
yeah,
What?
yeah,
That's
like
dope as hell.
drummers on a riser. It's like they do like it could be a little cheesy, but they'll have guys in traditional like costumes come out and do like a little battle while the guy's singing. He comes out with like a big Mjolnir and hits like this pyro. I'm gonna throw you some links. I think you'll get a
Dude,
kick out of
yeah,
it.
I'd love to see
And
it. Yeah.
I drive my wife bananas with it, because also the music videos, a lot of them are a lot of them are extended period pieces. So you have like this awesome metal song, but surrounded by like period drama you would see on the History Channel.
Dude, that's
It's
so
awesome.
my jam. That's so my jam. Yeah. That sounds
I'm
perfect.
very cool, man. I hope I can turn you on to them and that you dig them. How is the little side note? How is the band going?
Great. No,
Yeah.
I've been in the Army. I'm in the Army Field Band in the Washington D.C. area. It's one of the premier military
Mm-hmm.
bands in the capital. And although we mostly play on tour, we've
Mm-hmm.
got a sister organization that plays mostly in Arlington Cemetery and little ceremony things on in within the Beltway. But our band plays mostly on tour. We travel out to kind of tell the Army story around
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the country. Um, it's good. I play trumpet. It's been a good gig. I'm getting close to my 20 years. I'm going to do 20 and bounce, I think.
Wow.
And I'm knocking on the door. I'm like, I got less than 2 years left, so I'm gonna finish up. I think I've decided to do 20 and retire. I think then I'll
Yeah.
just be writing after that.
That's awesome. I can't
Yeah,
wait to
thanks.
see. I can't wait to see like if this is the stuff that you're doing now while having this, I guess, full time thing. I can't
Yeah,
wait to see what you have when you don't have a full time thing. I want to see like
thank
this
you,
stuff that you come up with. Um,
man. Me too. It's honestly gotten kind of nuts. Like
mhm.
I'm spending so much time writing now. I'm ready to have just one job again. It's been really hard for a long time. But it's all work that is very rewarding, and I
Mhm.
love doing all of it. But yeah, it's getting pretty untenable, so I'm going to do my 20 and go, I think.
Do any of your army buddies like are any of them into like what you do? Like
Yeah.
I remember what year did you join?
Uh, God, 20 years will be 2025. So yeah, 2005 I got in.
Okay. I remember I graduated high school in 99 and I
Mm.
went to a Catholic school and a lot of the guys in my grade signed up during a career fair, like Army, Navy, Marines.
Uh,
And then when they joined, they were just like, yo, I know you're into comics. Like, give me recommendations so I can just buy a bunch of shit. I'm going to be on an aircraft carrier for the next, like, God knows how long. Are any of your, like, contemporaries, like, into what you're doing? Like, do they know that you're writing Superman and the Hulk?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they do. I mean, I don't know how many people at work know. A lot of them know. A lot of them do
Mm-hmm.
know, and some of them are super supportive. I'm sharing links and
Mm-hmm.
stuff on social media, so a lot of them see
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm sure they talk about it to others in the unit. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
most of my colleagues know, um, and most of them are very cool about it. And they think it's really cool. When I was first getting into it, I think some of them probably thought it was kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an unusual job, like just for the normie, just be like, yeah, I write comic books, right? I want to write comic books. It just sounds so random to the average soldier, right? I'm like, you want to do what now?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, people would sometimes, make shitty little comments. They see me reading comics and be like, do the pictures help and shit like that. Um, like whatever. They just
Yeah.
don't get it. We're all band nerds. Don't like it's somehow you're like, is
Right.
that's cool and comics are not cool?
Like, how are you more badass than I am right now?
Yeah, right. I'm like, man, shut up. So yeah, but then when it started working out, after a bit,
Mm-hmm.
nobody's laughing anymore, and it starts to seem a little cooler. And now that I'm writing characters that they recognize,
Mm-hmm.
like now it's cool, you know.
Yeah.
But to some people, it was always cool. I had a lot of colleagues at work that were always really cool about it and very supportive. And yeah, they love seeing the books come out and talking about it. So yeah, it's whenever anyone at work has any kind of a nerd question, they always come. I get nerd questions at work all the time about ask me if I'd seen the recent show or the recent movie or something coming out or some game or just whatever. Like I'm always the one to talk to you about nerd stuff at work, which is honestly really cool. I like
Yeah.
doing that.
That's always fun too, especially if you're into it. You like to answer those questions. I love doing that too. Like, it's funny. Like a lot of my friends read comics, but like I feel like my core group, it's just like it's everything. So like I'll get fielded those questions, and it's like, oh, you do like a podcast with the thing, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. What is your most hardcore like nerd thing that you're into?
What am I into the most?
I would say like something that is you could say like I'm into comics and I'm into this and I'm in the army band, but this is the one thing that I think is like truly the epitome of like a nerd thing. Like I'll give you mine is I think it might be being really into Settlers of Catan, like the tabletop role play
Oh,
game.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, here's the thing though. The
yeah.
word nerd doesn't mean what it used to.
Right. Yeah.
Now everyone talks about, like, everyone describes himself as a nerd, but really it's
Mm-hmm.
a compliment now. Like when it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm such a nerd about this. Sometimes they talk about themselves that because they like science or because they like band
Yeah.
or because they like comics or they like movies or they like tabletop or whatever. Politics. Like Paul's like, I'm such a
Yeah.
politics nerd. Like it just means you're really into something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not even the slam like it was when we were kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But something I'm into though. I mean, honestly, I'm really blessed that I'm just really into the stuff that I'm into Superman, man. I mean, I love alien movies.
Yeah.
I love horror comics. I mean, not just horror comics, but I deeply love horror comics.
Yeah.
And and when I say horror, I also mean just kind of like spooky, creepy stuff too. Like I wouldn't really call Hellboy horror exactly,
Mm-hmm. It's
but
tangential to
yeah, it's like
yeah.
there's a ton of cosmic horror
Mm-hmm.
elements to it, right? Or folk horror, depending on what chapter you're reading. Like probably the biggest influence on Hulk
Mm-hmm.
is a chapter called The Crooked Man that was
Oh yeah. Yeah.
written by Mignola but drawn by Richard Corbin. That book is unbelievable, and that's probably the biggest influence on Hulk as far as the tone of it.
Let's talk about Hulk a little
Um,
bit. What a 1-2 combo here about with Superman and the Hulk.
Man, thanks. Yeah, I had just given up my beloved Alien, just because I was
Mm-hmm.
so out of bandwidth. I was like, man, I just cannot keep up with the workload. I'm not going to be doing my best work here soon. I should get out of it.
Yeah.
So I let go of Alien. I'd been writing Alien for 2 years, and I was like, I should probably let this go because I'd already gotten three good arcs out of it. And I was very proud of them, and those are
Very
the
good.
original ones that I'd pitched.
Can I interrupt
And
you for a second?
yeah, yeah.
You saying that is wildly refreshing. Instead of saying instead of you saying like, yeah, let me crank whatever I have out, you're like, let me take a step back. It's not gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had said I pitched them three, like, well, I guess I had more than three pitches originally, but
Uh-huh.
we kind of combined them into 3 chapters,
Hmm.
and we did them all, and it turned out really good. I was proud of them. I feel like I said what I wanted to say with Alien, and yeah, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to just. I was finding myself trying to think of what the next story would be, and I was having to think a little too hard about it. I was like, man, this is not, the story is not exactly writing itself here. I'm really having, I feel like I'm having to really kind of beat the bushes
Hmm.
for what else I would want to do next. Um, and I was just so, if that was the only book I was writing, or even one of only 2 books I was writing,
Hmm.
maybe I would feel more creatively fulfilled, and I just, hadn't, maybe all the ideas would just be bursting out of me. But I was writing so many books, it just didn't make sense to continue when I know other people are just kind of waiting to do that book that I'm sure have amazing ideas, like Declan,
Hmm.
who's doing it now.
Yeah.
So I let it go. I really felt that was the first time I've ever like walked away from a book, like putting it down and walk away. I felt really weird about it. I was like, man, this is a mistake. And that was the only Marvel book I was doing at the time.
Okay.
I was like, what if this is the end of my Marvel work? And actually, at that same New York Comic Con, I was
Hmm.
hanging out with, I had bumped into Jordan White, who'd been my editor on another series,
Hmm.
and I told him I was done, and he said, wait a second, do you not have any other Marvel books right now? I'm like, no, that was it. And he's like, oh no. And that was nice of him to say that. I was like, it was cool to hear, like, oh man, we got, you're not doing anything else with us right now. Because I'm always afraid of,
Right.
accidentally shutting a door that I don't want to be shut. That's just kind of how that goes. Like everyone's got, all writers and artists have these relationships with editors, and that's kind of how you get
Hmm.
these calls. And if you, editors move company to company, and it's very easy to kind of just find yourself on the outside
Hmm.
without anyone really making that conscious decision. Anyway, so I let it go, and then right after that, I get a call from Will Moss. He was an editor that I've been wanting to work with forever at Marvel,
Hmm.
because I hear all these good things, and I like the books that he edits. He's like, "Hey man, would you want to do Hulk?" And I mean, honestly, I didn't really think about myself as a Hulk guy, but
Okay.
as soon as that opportunity came along, I was like, "Oh my god, dude, what would I do with Hulk?" Because I that's one of those stories that, like,
Uh,
the concept is so like brilliant in its simplicity that any little kid can just totally understand. But the deeper you dig into it, the more meaningful, subtext laden stories you can do. You can do so
right.
much with a story like Hulk. It can mean anything. I mean, you can tell stories about, rage or addiction or compulsion or, abuse or whatever. Like there's so many things you can tell, meaningful stories you can tell with a Hulk story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It lends
and
itself
honestly,
to a lot of stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, and I loved the Al Ewing stuff, and I kind of missed it. And I mean, the
Mhm.
the Donny Cates stuff was so true to Donnie's voice.
Right.
But I'm just a horror guy, and I thought that lent itself very well to Hulk. I thought that the horror tinged Hulk run was so effective that you almost can't leave that element out of it now. Like that's kind of just baked into what Hulk is now, in my opinion. Kind of like Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing is always just going to be a creepy book now, just because we associate it with that burning rights and stuff.
I think like, I think Al Ewing um opened the floodgates in terms of like, yeah, you can make this like a Cronenberg kind of body horror book, and this could be what the Hulk is, along with
Yeah,
everything that you mentioned. It could be abuse, trauma, empowerment, anger, rage, addiction. It could be everything. And it's a fascinating character to work on in that regard.
yeah,
Um, and I think in the last few years, like you had I think Jason Aaron's Thor run set the bar for Thor, which was followed by Cates's stuff, right? And
yeah,
now we're getting Al Ewing doing Immortal Thor, right? And I think the trend is continuing with Hulk. Like you're following what Cates did and what Al Ewing did, but with a completely original spin on it. And I think it's like this is Hallmark Hulk stuff. And even though it's the first 2 issues, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but like those first, you read those first 2 issues and you're like, holy shit, like this is continuing like the uniqueness of these runs that have been fantastic over the last few years. What was the internal reaction to like those first two issues?
Great. I mean, Tom, was it Tom Brevoort? I think Tom Brevoort read the first couple issues and was very complimentary, in a
Mm-hmm.
way that he reads all that stuff and he gives notes, and he just went out of his way to talk about how good issue 2 was, and that was a really cool sign. And I honestly, I think 3 is better. 2 and 3 are a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to do almost like a Marvel team up style approach to the
Mm-hmm.
numbering, where we would do a lot of really short arcs, like 1 or 2 issues, sometimes 3 issues. So this is like just constant jumping on points, constantly new characters, constantly new adventures, so that you can just pick it up almost anywhere and just start from wherever that is. And issues 1, 2, and 3, I was a little bit afraid in issue 2 because there's so little Hulk in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, man, this is kind of what it needs to be. I really want it to. Issue 3 is like all Hulk. It's just super badass. But it's in the end, I'm trying to write. I tend to write to the trade more than a single issue.
Oh,
But I
interesting.
understand
Okay.
I understand it's monthly comics, and I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep it
Mm-hmm.
really fun and energized every issue. But in the end, I feel like it only exists as a comic so briefly, and then it's in a volume after that. And I feel like the longer story, if I had to pick which one matters more, it has to be the longer arcs, because that's the form in which it exists, like almost in its entire life.
Yeah.
So I do think I'm constantly thinking about the overarching story more than just the individual issue.
Are
Anyway,
you becoming like more of a long form storyteller in that regard? Like what you said, like with the War World stuff, where you were like, I threw in a few more issues in there, your
well,
world building,
it depends on the story. For
Mhm.
War World Saga, that one needed to be long because we weren't trying to make the best Action Comics 1036
Mhm.
ever, or the best July issue of Superman. We're trying to make fucking Watchmen, you know,
Okay.
or like the Dark Phoenix saga, or Identity Crisis, or all the names of these big stories
Mhm.
that exist as like a volume, so we're trying to make like an epic saga, not
Mhm.
just an individual month thing. I understand that in-house, sometimes people that are in charge of marketing or publicity can get nervous about that, because there has to be
Mhm.
something to sell the book every single
Right.
month. It can't just be, if it's just more of the same, if it's another chapter in the same thing, several months running without any
Mhm.
new characters introduced or anything flashy for the cover, or anything suddenly flashy,
Yeah.
it makes it harder to sell the thing in the short term. So that does make people nervous. But in the end, I'm like, we're trying to make something that lasts forever here. It's not like
Right.
we're trying to make an evergreen story that will help define who and what Superman is and what he means. But with Hulk, it's different. I have some old, like when I was a kid, I had a lot of comics that my dad, I got my love for comics from a relatively small collection of books. Dad would
Mhm.
just bring home a box of just totally hacked out books from the garage sale or flea market or whatever they got for a buck for the whole stack or something.
Yeah.
And they were just trash to him that I would use to learn how to read. But I loved them, and I almost
Probably
never.
something like this.
There you go. I mean, that's in better shape than almost anything I
Yeah.
had. But yeah, and sometimes when I was really good, I could get one off the spinner rack at the grocery store or something. Because
Yeah.
back then, that's when I never saw a real comic shop ever. It was always, whenever I got a new thing, it was always at the grocery store, or
Yeah.
the drugstore maybe. Man, that was the best actually. Like going to the
Mhm.
drugstore, our dad was getting whatever, or mom, and they would have the spinner rack of comics next to the magazines. God, I could just look through that stuff forever. Anyway,
That best times too. Best times too. Like you
yeah,
can just like those fond memories of like remembering discovering comics and going to like the newsstand or the drugstore and being like,
oh my God.
what are these?
Yeah, it was incredible. And
Mhm.
I had very few books that I had very few consecutive numbered issues. Like it
Mhm.
was almost always a one-off. So when I had a book that ended at the end of that issue, that was like gold. And sometimes I would have like two in a row,
Yeah.
and when it was like a two-parter, sometimes there were a lot of like Marvel team ups, like Spider-Man team ups with whoever, with whatever B or C lister,
Mhm.
or sometimes A lister. Sometimes it would be him and Doctor Strange, or him and Ghost Rider. Other times it would be him with like one member of the Fantastic Four or something. Or
Right. Yeah.
let's see, there was a Luke Cage issue. There was a, God, what else was there? I had a good number of them. And some of the people he was teamed up with were a little obscure.
Mhm.
Um, that was the only, I think I had one issue that had Black Widow in it, and I had never seen, not like she's obscure, but to me she was.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
I'd never seen her anything else. Anyway, those little stories that would be one or sometimes two issues, man, that was just the best. And I really want that to be what this Hulk run is, where every story is quite short, so people can just jump in, get a story that finishes, and they have this cool little adventure where you see a character you recognize, Hulk, with either a new creature that I've introduced, like a new villain,
Yeah.
or like an obscure character from a long time ago that we haven't seen much in a while, or somebody like a or somebody beloved, just
Mhm.
that we haven't seen with Hulk in a long time, like Man Thing. So anyway, yeah, I wanted it to be a different kind of approach. Um,
It does have.
and
It does
I
have
love
like.
the monstrous side of the Marvel U, and I wanted to kind of contribute to that bestiary. I'm trying to build like a whole. We're doing a lot of back matter actually. Have you read issue 3 yet?
No, not yet. Not yet.
There's a back matter page
Mhm.
called The Remembrances of Eldest. Excuse me.
Mhm.
The Remembrances of Eldest, in which Eldest talks about Brother Deep, the monster in issue 3. And
Oh, that's cool.
at the end of every little chapter is going to have one of those where Eldest talks about whatever the thing
Mhm.
is. I've written a couple others since then, and man, it's fun. So anyway, I want to just kind of blow out the Marvel universe with more monsters. So that's what we're
Listen,
doing.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of monsters. You're. It's only two issues in, and like I immediately got like a bit of like a Vertigo feel. Like I know it's
Oh,
Marvel,
cool, dude.
but
That's high praise. That's what I want.
like I immediately got that little Vertigo feel, and I'm like, I'm really digging this. And I think there was so many like you're a fan of horror comics, and there's so many like forgotten, really good horror comics that came out over the ages that I feel like are not like talked about. Like I remember DC put out this book called Wasteland
Hmm.
that was like just really gnarly stuff. It was an anthology series. Like I always really dug the horror anthologies. Like Vertigo put out a book called Flinch in the early
Oh, okay.
2000s. I don't know if you remember that. But
I don't think I know that one either. Actually, sorry.
or even in the modern parlance, I think the Silver Coin
Oh
out from
yeah.
out from Image, like those the horror anthology stuff. Your Hulk, the first two issues kind of very much remind me of that. Like you don't know what's going to come next, right? It's going to keep the reader on their toes. How long is this first kind of self-contained thing that you're doing?
Well, what do you mean when you say self-contained? You talking about the thing with Brother Deep, or you talking like the whole, like the thing with Eldest and Mother of Horrors and all that?
I guess the easier question would be how long are you going to be on the book?
Um, Honestly, until I reach that
Mhm.
same kind of feeling I had an
Okay.
Alien, right? Because I don't want to. I want to make sure I leave when they want me to stay.
Okay. Okay.
you know. So yeah.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Thanks. I don't want to overstay my welcome, and we've all seen it. We've all
Mhm.
seen TV shows in
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it's the best. It's the best. It's the best. Oh, that was maybe not quite so good. Now it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one show in particular that kind of breaks my heart, where I was like, oh, they just overstayed their welcome. They should have ended it when it was classy to do so.
Are you talking
And
about Happy
that's
Days?
no, that's a great example. That's before my time. But let's see. I'm thinking of Dexter, actually. If I'm just gonna, I'll go ahead and say it.
Well, you
Dexter
mean
should have ended
the
before it ended.
the
Huh?
re like the redo, or like they should never have done like the second thing.
Well, I'm well before that. Like I
Okay.
think
Okay.
they should have done 4 seasons, maybe five.
Uh.
I think four, really. I think four seasons is where they should
Mhm.
have just kind of put a bow on it. But it was, I
Okay.
mean, that was their cash cow. I get it. I know how it works, but yeah, they ruined it, you know?
Okay.
So anyway, I mean, just for planning purposes, Marvel asked me for the outline, um, for like they just wanted like a year's worth. Just give me the first 12 and see what's coming.
Mhm.
And I gave them way more than that, way more,
Uh,
to no complaints. And they really like the direction. They like the fan response. It's doing very well. So hopefully they'll let me keep doing it for a long time. I'm loving doing it. They seem to everyone in house and out in the shop seem to be really digging it. So I would love to do this, but right now we're all having an amazing time. Nick Klein is doing the best
mhm.
work of his career, which is no small feat. I mean, he just keeps giving me pages that look like covers. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's just stupid how good they are. I
He's
mean,
next
when
level,
the
man. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he certainly is now. I mean, the first two issues sold out,
Mhm.
when they did the variant cover for when they did the reprint cover for issue one, they just took a page out of the book
Mhm.
and made it the cover. And they did the
Wow.
same thing. They did the same thing for issue two. And
That's awesome,
they're
man.
it's insane. I mean, and there's pages coming up. I mean, I'm not spoiling anything now. They've already shown my World War II Ghost Rider that's coming.
Can't wait. I can't wait for that, to be
Yeah,
honest.
there's some pages from that issue that are just face meltingly incredible. I just
Yeah.
can't believe how good they are. They're better than and some of these covers that Nick has been doing. He's been turning them in for months ago, and now I'm
Mhm.
getting these pages. Like he's getting better. Like the interior pages are better than some of these covers. It's just stupid how good they are.
Do you get
So
anxiety with like not in like a bad way, but do you get like anxious where you're like, this stuff has been done months ago. It looks amazing. When is the book coming out?
no, I don't feel that way. It's
Mm.
maybe I would if I only had one title. Right now I'm writing a bunch
Okay.
of stuff, and I don't really have
Mm.
time to look down. Honestly, I'm just like trying to crank some. Like I gotta There's a thing I gotta finish tonight, or it's my ass. Like I'm just constantly writing.
Okay.
So I don't have really time. I don't have time to think about release schedules. I don't even know when books come
Uh,
out half the time. I don't know when FOCs are. I'm really bad
uh,
about it. I'm just trying to make sure that every artist has script pages in front of them to draw constantly. I can't let anyone get idle.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying
Yeah.
to stay ahead of every artist, make sure everyone's like comics are just this train that never stops. So I'm just trying to stay ahead of everybody and make sure this is my best work. I don't have anxiety. Sometimes I do uh with these amazing artists, and they're just doing such incredible work, and the fans out there that want
Mhm.
great stories. My anxiety sometimes manifests as writing a little too slow because I want to make sure that every issue is just like a home run. I don't want to. Sometimes I'll be writing a book and an issue, and I'll kind of take a second, sit back, and be like, "Is this great? I'm not sure this is great. Like this is competent, but I feel like I'm just kind of painting my numbers right now, and I don't think this is not gonna be anyone's favorite issue ever. And so I'll go back and I'll find some books that are basically
Mhm.
accomplishing what I'm trying to emulate. Like for example, if I'm writing Hulk, if I'm talking about a Hulk thing, I'll read some Hellblazer or Hellboy or
Okay.
um God, what else?
Do you think
I like Ice Cream Man, but it's not quite the same. What's another series? There's a graphic novel adaptation of Beowulf. It's incredible.
does the army discipline help? And are you going to be at New York Comic Con?
I joined the army when I was like 27 years old.
Hmm.
So I did not learn to be a grown up in the army.
Okay.
If anything, my career. By the way, what beer are you drinking? I'm curious.
This is a Dogfish Head IPA.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm not an IPA guy. This is Smittix.
Oh, very
I like
nice. Yeah.
Reds and ambers are kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not like a big drinker in any case. I haven't had a beer and I honestly don't remember.
Well, I appreciate you having one with me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did not learn to be grown up in the army. Some people do though. I mean, some people enlist when they're
Mm-hmm.
17. So there are systems in place
Mm-hmm.
to help people become grown-ups.
Well,
But not everyone does. Some people get into it later in life.
the discipline of you saying this is good but not great. I don't want to phone it in. This is not going to be somebody's favorite issue. Like I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of
that
writers
can,
don't do. Unfortunately, a lot of writers don't do that.
well, it's I mean it's a job, right? And some people. I
No.
mean, I get it. I mean, comics does have any kind of serial storytelling or monthly or
Mm,
any kind of like serial publishing where it's coming out over and over and over and over again.
mm,
They're kind of ruled by the calendar and it's got to be there. So, I mean, honestly, I understand that if I cut a deadline too close or miss it, I know it sometimes I might stress somebody out, and I
mm,
deeply hate that, and I am racked with guilt. But in the end, again, it's the book on the shelf that is going to matter in the end.
mm.
And I'm trying to make a thing that everyone involved, including those editors, are proud of forever. You know, I want them to look back and be like, yeah, I was involved in making this beautiful thing. Not like, boy, we sure hit that deadline. You know, it's that
Right.
definitely matters because I want every
Yeah.
artist and colorist and post-production guy and letterer and everyone involved to have time to do their job. They got to have that. But they also deserve to be respected with my best work. So sometimes I do miss a deadline by a day or two because I am trying to I need to make sure it's the best thing. I was like, I'm sorry. I've been so underwater. I've been turning in
Mm,
partial scripts, which I hate doing. Like
mm.
here's 6 pages to keep you rolling while I finish the rest of this. There's a couple other scenes that are just not right yet. And I'll work out those two scenes while they get this other scene to draw.
Mm.
Just I need them. I need it to be best. I need it to be its best version of itself.
That's wonderful
So
to hear, man. I appreciate your time.
yeah, man,
Uh, am I going to see you in New York?
I'll be there. Now, just so you
Ah,
know, I am there Thursday, Friday, and most likely early Saturday. But then my band goes on tour that day.
wow.
So
Yeah.
they're flying out from BWI probably out to the West Coast, and I'm going to be meeting them that night. So I don't know what time I'm flying out yet, but I will be there Thursday and Friday for sure. Saturday morning and early afternoon, hopefully.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see. So find me those first 2 days.
I will definitely come and find you. If I don't see you at your booth, I'm assuming there's going to be another thing like last year or whatever. Whatever. I'll find you.
Yeah, man. No, I'll see you there.
But I appreciate it, man. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, of
You're
course. Good to see you again.
fantastic, and I can't wait for what the future holds. I personally, selfishly, I hope you have like a book in you because I would love to read
Oh, thanks, brother.
it.
Appreciate it.
A novel, a beautiful long novel.
Yeah, I'd love to. I got to get these comics out of me first, but I'd definitely love to do that.
Cool, man. It's always a pleasure talking to Phillip. What a great mind for comics. What a cool dude. I strongly suggest you guys pick up everything that he's worked on. And there's probably going to be a ton more awesome stuff in the future. Go check out the Hulk run. I think if you're new to the comic, you'd be very pleasantly surprised by it. And listen, I'm going to be doing some more interviews. I'm going to try to put out more content. We got about a month until New York Comic Con, and I hope to see some of you guys there. Listen, if you guys are going to be there, hit me up in the comments, reach me on Twitter at BTC Rich. Maybe we can hang out, get a beer or something. Or if you have any questions or comments about the show or people you want to see me interview, that would be cool too. Just, like I said, hit me up on the Twitter, comment here, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. I got to get my affiliate programs in order and my press stuff in order as well. We got some cool interviews coming up through a couple of good resources. You never know who might show up. I'm going to try to post these a lot more regularly leading up to Comic Con. So let's have some fun, guys. Later.